What's up, fellas? In this video we're about to check out the double-barreled Godzilla burner. This was developed specifically for two farmers who contacted me with the need to incinerate pig carcasses and chicken carcasses. They usually ship these off in the wintertime with a dumpster, but in the summer months apparently the stench is just too much to bear. So we're going to dig them out of a trench here and get them in a situation where they can use some of their waste products on the farm to handle some of their other waste products on the farm. So we're going to kill two birds with one stone here. Guys, it's 10:42. We've got about 14 liters of oil here. It's getting really cold though. Our dead chicken is in place. Let's start the incineration process. All right, fellas, so the brass tacks right off the bat here, we burned 8 liters of oil, and the total burn time was 39 to 40 minutes. It didn't need to go that long, in my opinion. Once you get a good pile of bones, you're pretty much done. I went ahead and turned the bones into almost complete powder in 39 minutes. Now, we started at 10:40. The process, I would say, in my opinion, it was done by about 11:20. So you're looking at about 35, 40 minutes maybe. It's kind of hard to tell. I kind of lost track at the end there. A piece of footage is missing where I spoke out the time, but I want to say that this thing, it could be as quick as a half hour if you have the settings right. Guys, so here it is, about 40 minutes later, and we are pretty much done. That's just burning bone right there. Okay, it's 11:20, pretty much done. You see there, we're just right at about the 6 liter mark. We started off at 14 liters, so we're 8 liters into this, and we've got nothing but a pile of bones to show for it here. They're pretty much done for. Okay, we started with about a half tank, and I think we used about a quarter of that. It doesn't look like the fuel moved much at all. We were using a 6 horsepower air compressor to do that, and it's in the dead of winter. So, fellas, yes, we could have done that in under 6 liters, or under 7 liters, I believe it was. Sorry, we actually used 8 liters of fuel there. So we could have done better than that. If we had a big fire brick incinerator area, something that would contain that heat for hours on end, you could probably run the burner for like 4 or 5 hours and it would sit there and bake for another 10 hours once you got that thing super hot. So we were losing a lot of heat, and I was just kind of playing with the flame, and what I was doing is when the bones would glow the hottest, I was considering that to be the optimum setting. Sometimes you can actually watch the color of the bones become a darker red because there's just more fuel than oxygen. So we're kind of we're using some of the oxygen from the combustion stream to burn the bones, it looks like. So that obviously is going to help, because when those bones are burning white hot, you better believe the IR coming off of those things is intense, and it is heating up the area around it even more. So basically, fellas, as of right now, I'm going to have to sell this thing for about $400. I haven't built it enough to get the time down so where I can make it any cheaper than that. And it is full of brass fittings and stuff. So, but for the most part, this thing should pay for itself in a single season. I mean, if you're able to get rid of 50 gallons of your vegetable oil, then... All right, fellas, so about 5 minutes in, the chicken rolled off the grate. So I had to stop the whole process and start over. I don't know if it was thrust from the burner or just the way the canister was leaning, but I went ahead and made some quick modifications, and we're getting on with it. This next bit of footage is just the GoPro footage of the process for you guys who wanted to see a little bit more of the incineration action. It's not a whole lot of change. It's basically just a fireball aimed at a chicken. So, smells fantastic, I might add it. kind of made me hungry. Despite all the waste oil, you really could only smell like a very nice barbecue chicken smell. So anyway, there we have it. The burner works fantastic. I'm absolutely impressed with the performance of this thing. It is about 5 degrees below wind chill outside right now, and for this thing to be able to pump oils that effectively in this weather is pretty good news. And I also want to add that this waste oil is the dirtiest of the dirty. This came from the mechanic shop across the street, and they informed me that everything under the sun or in a car is basically in that oil. Like when they go to take a car apart, say they take the water pump off and all the antifreeze comes pouring out and all that stuff. All that stuff goes in the same drum with these guys apparently. So this isn't the best fuel, but you can see this hot water heater is working out great. The individual who I'm going to sell this to says he has a fire brick incinerator. So the amount of heat that's going to be held in by this flame is going to be tremendous. Brother, you're going to be able to use this with a lot more efficiency than what I'm doing in the presentation here. I haven't even had time to practice with flame settings. I've got one chicken and that's it. So for the most part, you're going to find a sweet spot with this flame that's a good balance between utilizing your fuel and the time that you have to devote to this process. This particular burner is extremely wind resistant. Gale force winds will not blow this style of burner out. There's just something about it that gives it tremendous stability. So this is the dual Godzilla burner, by the way, or the double barrel Godzilla. I haven't come up with a name for it yet, but this build was inspired by a pig farmer and a chicken farmer. Both individuals were interested in something this spring that could get them out of having to deal with dumpsters full of dead animals that obviously is going to be a bit of a smell issue. So fellas, I'm going to wrap this up in a box here for you and send you a link. Let me know what you think. Now this thing can burn just about anything, obviously. This same burner should do just fine for the pig farmer. I know I'm only burning one chicken here, but with the amount of heat we're throwing into this thing, we could probably very easily do at least 10, I'm thinking. If we had a big long tube, you know. I mean, that heat carries, and oddly enough, a grease fire does kind of start halfway into the process. There's a lot of grease on those babies. They definitely have their own fuel attribute to them. So when that burner acts like a Ventura, it pumps a lot of air into that burner and its own self. That's available as secondary air for the combustion of the grease and all that other stuff. You can see how some spots there the bone is glowing white hot. If you turn the fuel up too high, it won't do that anymore. So that's kind of how I was trying to calibrate the flame setting, was based on whether or not we had glowing white bones. It's kind of the same process that I use when I'm using these things for burning tree stumps out of the ground. I also want to mention that this particular unit, I've never used one this large for a tree stump burner, but if you had an exceptionally large tree stump, these things are fantastic for that. They burn literally any fuel, so if you've got some waste vegetable oil, that's the perfect fuel to burn out of these, because you're not violating any EPA regulations or anything like that, or you don't need a license to burn vegetable oil as far as I know. Don't quote me on that. There's a lot to the laws that I don't know, so for the most part you can see me kind of adjusting flame settings, trying to find that optimum setting in between perfect oxidation and still enough heat to expedite the process. We don't want to be here all day, you know, so that's kind of one of the main things. My observation during this test indicated that this could be considered done in about a half hour. But I wanted to go ahead and turn the bones into almost just powder. So I may have well overdone it. The chicken farmer is going to be able to see this and tell better than I am what would be suitable as this thing goes. I'm continuously adjusting the flame, just kind of looking at what's going on inside the combustion chamber. If I see too much oil and fat down there on the rim, I know I'm just not throwing enough heat back in there. So I kind of turn it up a little bit.
and throw the whole glowing bone thing out the window. But for the most part, doing this in the dead of winter was very problematic. I'm constantly running back and forth with the blowtorch, melting ice out of the air lines. We keep losing air throughout the process as well, so that was another battle. You won't have these problems in the summertime. And I also wanted to touch a little bit on oil tank elevation. You want that oil tank to be elevated above the burner at least 4 foot to throw the flames that we're seeing here. Tank elevation isn't necessary, but it is definitely a big attribute of output. The burner will work. You see there are flames kicking up because I'm melting the ice in the hose there. Watch what happens here in a second. As soon as that ice plug goes through, you should see the burner kick up. There it goes. So I'm battling ice plugs, fellas, through the whole process here. This video isn't going to be on the... I'm not going to do the whole video, I guess I should say. It's going to be heavily edited for the most part, but we're seeing a lot of the things that took place. I don't know what else to do as far as... I didn't want to just put every second of footage because surely you'll take my word for it that it only took about a half hour to burn up this chicken. And I did want to leave some of the full duration footage on there just for you guys who wanted to kind of edit through it yourselves. You can see there it's really starting to fall apart now and collapse on itself. Look at that. There it goes. Now, I'm burning a lot of bone from this point on. I also want to add, guys, that this chicken was frozen. I thawed it out in the sink for a little bit, but I guarantee you it wasn't thawed out all the way. So I may have botched the test. This is a frozen chicken. I need to mention that in the beginning.